Hey guys, welcome back to the Lit Mag Lab podcast. I'm Jazz Marie, aka Vevna Forrow. So previously, I was discussing short stories. How do you essentially try and get an acceptance? With your flash fiction or short story, right? And things to take in consideration. What we look for at Dippy Lit Mag and things like that. And prior to that episode, right, I was discussing submission management systems and just doing a recap of my faves and collectively, of course, I have individual episodes on them, quite a few of them, just covering the plans and features, mostly sharing from the submitter's perspective, and also on the back end a little bit, just talking about what some of the features are that I really love with some of the submission management systems. So you can look back at those episodes, the video ones, out on YouTube or Spotify if you'd like. And yeah, so this is gonna be another video based episode, and I think if you're listening on Apple, there's just audio over there and some other channels that this goes out to. So yeah, so I mentioned an episode or two back that I wanted to cover software and services that perhaps founding editors of lit magazine journals could use for organizational purposes. I think it's important to recognize that submission management systems like Submittable, right, Subfolio, Duosuma, and Dapple, and several other ones out there. I've mentioned quite a few of the ones I'm aware of in existence, right? They are great for organization, keeping track of assignments, what everyone's working on the team, and collaboration. Totally. I think Subfolio and Dapple and other submission management systems I've just shared on this podcast. Quite a few of them have great commenting collaboration features and chat integrations. Where team members can message, input their feedback, their thoughts on a submission internally. But I think something that's problematic with a lot of these submission management systems, right? And a lot of us were just on with the budgets we have to work with on the basic plans, typically the baseline plans, ones that are within our budget, so we don't typically get like the full priced or highest priced plan, all the features and everything, all the bells and whistles. And I think as I was stating, the problem with still today for a lot of founding editors of lit mags and journals, they don't have one comprehensive solution for keeping track of everything in the editorial side, or you could say um, book publication tasks, right? Or even publishing, project management and things like that, all the tasks associated that editors do, keeping tabs on what everyone's working on. And yeah, I've seen quite a few fellow editors, right? They are using additional tools for collaboration, task management, tracking completion statuses, still going outside of their submission management system like Submittable, Duosuma. And no, not to say Submittable does have workflow setups and some additional features. I just haven't when I was on Submittable a little over 2 years and we left for Subfolio again, right? So when I was on Submittable, right, I saw there were features like that. And for some that works out well, and some have higher plans with Submittable, they totally do. Or perhaps some organizations, some larger ones. But for the most part, we don't really have when we were on it, we didn't have access to a lot of the other features. You had to upgrade, or it was outside of what was covered in our CLMP plan, which would be way too expensive for us. So Subfolio, right, which is what we decided to go with, or I did, move my reading team towards. And I think it's really great, for organization and tracking. Obviously, it just launched this year, so way more features are probably going to be added to it. And same thing with Dapple, right? That's launching this year, I believe, as well, and just starting out. So, I'm sure over time, as they get feedback and input from others, they'll add more features or fine tune things a little bit. But for the most part, it's great for tracking, keeping tabs of, publications, right, that you have to complete and do, and who's assigned to what and where it is, right? And I think, again, Submittable, right? Submittable has these submission statuses, right? And, I'm sure you've all been familiar with like received, in progress, declined, accepted, completed. withdrawn, statuses that the submitter also sees, and subfolio has that too, right? It says, rejected versus declined, I think, and some of the wording for some submission management systems is slightly different. In progress, this status, right? That doesn't necessarily mean, it says here, I'm quoting this, submittable, right? Handled in some way in a review process. Your submission has been received and additionally handled in some way in a review process. So that entails, that when I was using Bindable, when you would just even assign it to a team member, it would move it to in progress, and that's not necessarily means a team member has looked at it. That could just mean that it was assigned off to a team member too. And I didn't really like that. I like where it was, you could maybe have it wait or on that, rather than instantly mark it as in progress whenever it's assigned to someone. But anyways, I like Subfolio, the way we're able to do, easy workflow setups and stuff. I felt Submittable was a little bit too complicated for me in terms of workflow setups. It should be, just a few minutes, right? It shouldn't take some time to figure out. For me anyway, it was like that. I just struggled with that. So anyways, I think these statuses help, keep tabs on everything. I've seen some lit magazine journals use completed statuses, but honestly, that's not I think a lot of poets and submitters don't like seeing that status. They like having it left again on the accepted green status, or left like that, so they can see, the board of all their acceptances green side by side. Completed, I think some places use that when they've published a piece or when they've finished reviewing, so it's confusing like what that essentially means. So, for a while I was using completed at some point in time submittable, but I reverted everything back, that had acceptances to the green status based on feedback and others, but we're not on submittable anymore. So, that's just something to keep in mind. You want to be mindful about that as an editor, and things like that, how you are, showcasing or indicating a submission is published, right? Do you just track that as a note? Do you have it marked as accepted? Do you mark the publication date, the timestamp, right? Submittable has that, things like that. Not all submission management systems have that too, But all in all, submission management systems help you stay organized for sure, beyond email, beyond, some of the other, submission management systems, that I've mentioned on this podcast, right? Like Oleada doesn't have as many features as other submission management systems to date, but that could change. I mentioned on the podcast, I think they're looking to integrate with Asterism, or, the founder of it and founder of Oleada, right? So I'm not sure, but any case, I think submission management systems help for sure, so you must be asking yourself, how do you, Jazz or AK Vevna Forrow, right? How do you keep tabs on all of the tasks you have to do at Dippity Lit Mag and Dippity Press? So, personally, right, I mentioned this on the podcast, right? I come from, again, a help desk background, IT support. So for me, a lot of submission management systems are reminiscent, again, of ticket management systems like Zendesk and Jira and several other ones out there, right? You have a queue, as I mentioned, right? You have assignments, you're giving assignments out, you're triaging publications to rounds perhaps, or editors on the team or fellow editorial assistants, and things like that, or fellow editors, and readers, your reading team, you're keeping tabs on where submissions are, and the same thing, I've dealt with submitters in terms of help desk tickets, troubleshooting technology, error messages. So it's very similar, I feel like, having a queue. So I really like that about submission management systems. It helps me, see where everything's at, statuses, and, what tasks and events have happened on a submission. And yeah, so I would say I've always been personally a very list type person, though. In addition to like ticket systems and submission management systems, myself, I've always been someone to create to-do list or things I have to do for the week or day, and then I just cross off things on my list. I like having like a personal list. Notes apps have those. There's task apps I've used too. Like, just I like having like a to-do list, and I mark them off. If I don't, finish something on my to-do list, I add it to the next day to-do list or the following one. So I'm all for like to-do lists. I love those. It just helps me. I think we all have our own preference of tracking things. Some of us like calendar systems and some of us don't, so it all depends. Or like some of us like visual boards and things like that. I think we all have our preference when it comes to, ways we keep track of tasks we have to do. So I'm definitely a list type person. So I've always done that myself, bulleted pointed list and crossing them off, and or just marking things off or deleting that from my list, or removing it. And that just helps me stay organized. I've always done that. I'm going to do this next, this next, this next, and I have this to do on crossing off my list. So I love lists. Yeah. um I think, again, so with submission man systems, there's not like a comprehensive solution for, per se, I think that everyone uses for tracking publication tasks and everything. Submittable, again, has workflows. A lot of these submission man systems do workflows you can create and things like that. But I still see, fellow editors and team members and other lit magazine journals and presses using other tools for collaboration and chatting. Now, Sofolio, again, has a very nice chat functionality in their collaboration channels and things like that. We've just been on it for a little bit, about 2 months here, right? So still early for us, but yeah. In any case, we still use, Discord, right? And some places in LitMag and community use Slack, or, chat apps, right? This is Slack, right? And again, none of these are sponsored episodes. If ads pop up on any of these sites, right, I have to typically mark it as a promotional episode, but it's not at all. So yeah, anyways, so this is Slack, obviously. It's great for chatting, creating channels. And I think I've seen a lot of places just use Discord, both, even musicians and artists, I think, also use Discord quite a bit with connecting with their fans. And Chill Subs also has a Discord server and channels for lit mags and presses. And yeah, so I see a lot of places using Discord to date. I think I've just gotten used to Discord more so, but I've been, using various chat systems throughout, the since I started working at age 19, right? The first ever like chat system I ever used for like team messaging and stuff was like Skype for Business when it used to exist, right? And there was chats you could call, others in the workplace and things like that. And then I ended up, going to another workplace and new role, right? And there was hip chat, and hip chats was with Atlassian, right? Got I think they did something with the intellectual property, as I read on Wikipedia, and that turned over to Slack. Some of the functionality there, I think, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I think HipChat was discontinued, and now it's, Slack. It looks like from Salesforce is now saying there in the top left here. But yeah, so Slack is widely known. Discord is widely known. So a lot of Litmax journals and founding editors still use, these to keep track of everything. And I think it's a good idea to have a backup system for communication and messaging others. Sometimes submission management systems, they have downtime for maintenance, or sometimes they aren't operational 365 days a year, right? So it's good to have backup communication options to say, hey guys, I'm going to be out these days, or, a calendar system, right? Now, I mentioned this on the podcast in a couple episodes, right? I did try implementing some calendar systems for my reading team when starting out, but we ended up having quite a few volunteers, within the past 2 years, drop off due to life events or schedule priority changes or new jobs or moves and things like that. Yeah. So, yeah, I think you just, it's not for everyone. I think if you have a very large team, then it definitely makes sense to have some sort of, you know, um, calendar system and very structured, workflow systems and task tracking applications that everyone's using. I tried, getting everyone on board on Asana, but no one was really using it. Again, I have an unpaid volunteer staff, so I think, it wasn't like mandatory or anything like that. That others just help out when they can, but I think it's nice to be able to see, others' tasks or assignments all lined up and what they have to do. But, for the reading team, most part, I think submission management systems are a good, way to, get notified on what they have to do, their submissions for the day or week, right? You can set notifications in Submittable. Subfolio also has notifications, and I'm sure DualSum and Dapple, right? So other ones probably out there in existence. But Yeah. So Asana, right? It's like a task tracking. I felt it was very easy to use, Asana and simple. When I tried it briefly, I did a trial with it. So that's one to look at. But I would say I prefer FreeCamp. This is FreeCamp, by the way, and they have a free plan. Obviously, it's called FreeCamp, right? FREEDCAMP, and I just really like it. I obviously I'm not going to sign in and show you guys or anything like that, but they have other features here. I haven't used all the features to date, but it's one that I kept around. They have a mobile app too, but it got a fairly low rating. In any case, I think that's nice that they do have a mobile app. And I think Asana may have too. I can't remember if Asana has a mobile app. They may too. But FreeCamp, they have a Kanban board, task list, subtask, Gantt chart, Tasky, and calendars, right? You can keep personal tasks private, task management, give access management and stuff to, things like that. I think they also have an integrated, I could be wrong, messaging system inside, too. So yeah, it's a very good project management task tracking app. And it's free, FreeCamp. It's really nice, I think. There's, I think, wiki, discussions, calendar, issue tracker. I wish, submission management systems, more of them would have, more of these things, where we could have like a article database, a wiki, and milestones or calendar. Not all submission management systems, I think, are lacking some of these project management features here that you're seeing. So I think FreeCamp's a good free alternative for sure. It's one that I really like. If my team's not using anything currently for this, and that's because we're very small right now and we just help out when we can. And I think, if there's ever, a paid volunteer staff or paid staff, right? I think it makes sense to obviously keep track of everyone's hours, to keep track of tabs and deadlines very tightly. But it's just like others help out when they can. So I don't require anything mandatory like that. We don't have like daily meetings or weekly meetings required. I have optional, things, but I like to have everyone check in, at least regularly see their assignments are being handled, and I do monitor all of that. And I do, say, hey, I see, your assignments or felt, sometimes I see assignments fall off others' plates, and then I have to readjust assignments accordingly, right? So I keep tabs on all of that. But Free Camp, I think, is something you should definitely check out. Obviously their mobile app doesn't have the greatest ratings, but I think it's a really nice free alternative, project management wise, and I hope they continue to grow and stick around. Yeah. So I think this one was really one that I really like personally, that I've tried a little bit. I haven't used all the features of it, but definitely one that I liked, Freed Camp. So check it out. Yeah. There are other ones in the community I've heard others use, for like tracking things. Airtable, I'm not sure. I've heard quite a few founding editors mention Airtable. I have no experience with it. Just sharing again its existence. This is, I think, on the pricier side, and they have some AI tools. I don't know if you can switch those off or not. I'm not sure. They have an AI assistant called Omni. It seems like a lot of platforms have AI assistants too, right? Dapple, right, has Ash, and that's a submission management system, Dapple, right? But yeah, so Airtable has Omni and AI collaborator. I have no knowledge of Airtable, but it can be applied to a lot of different things. Here you can see, right, marketing, custom workflows, track successes, project management across departments, and things like that. Yeah, so I've no experience with Airtable, but they have different plans, right? It looks like free 1,000 records per base, up to 5 editors, and and yeah, 1 gigabyte of attachments per base, 100 automation runs. It looks like they have $20 per seat monthly billed annually, or $24 billed monthly, sorry. And yeah, so yeah, they have custom pricing for businesses, and it says here, business is 45 per seat month, and yeah. So it's kind of on the pricier side. I think, based on this, you probably could keep your bill, under, $100 maybe or something, but it's still kind of pricey, I think. I like, free options, right? Obviously, others are always keen on free options. So that's why I really like FreeCamp. There was no cost for me to really, sign up, and I hope it stays this way. I don't know if it's ever going to change. But yeah, it says it's, it's absolutely free. The features are free and you can be productive and stuff. So check out Freed Camp. I hope again it sticks around the next couple of years. I don't know like how they um, fund things for Freed Camp. I'm not sure where their funding's coming from for facilitating this free the free feature. Oh yeah, so it says these features are only available with our paid plans. So the task list, the Kanban board, subtask, and Gantt chart and Tasky. So just to clarify, those are additional features. So but I think on the free plan, you still get a lot. Just with like I don't know if they have pricing here on the bottom, but it's they have other third party integrations and widget boards and stuff like that. And yeah, so it's a very centralized. I don't know. Oh, pricing's at the bottom here. There we go. So let's go back to FreeCamp's pricing and see it's not too bad still. um the free plan, right? It says unlimited projects, tasks, storage, and users, right? Free forever with all essentials features included. And it says it's $1.49, right? USD per month, user billed annually. That's really not bad. I think Airtable, again, you saw, is on the pricier side. So I think this isn't too bad. And business is $7.49 per user a month billed annually. So yeah, they have enterprise plans and core applications featured in every plan, right? Milestones, files, discussions, calendar, tasks. So yeah, I think if you're looking for something to track on, the issue tracker, it's like premium feature add-ons, the wiki, the reports, invoices, and other stuff, email in, upload files from emails, project copies, overview of, why and how of a project, the what. So yeah, wiki is like on their business plan, as you can see. And yeah, the pro and above is the email in and pro Google Drive functionality, third party. Enterprise has more benefits like security wise, 2FA, two factor authentication, single sign on, daily snapshots, private cloud, yeah. Anyways, yeah, FreeCamp I think is pretty inexpensive. It's not too bad, compared to some other things I've seen. So I just wanted to clarify, right, what was free, because I think I was listing off things, but still, it's pretty reasonable. I think cost wise for project management if you're looking for something. Airtable I think is a pretty comprehensive thing. It can be applied in multiple different ways, but it's on the pricier side. It would be something outside of my budget, so I don't think I'd use it at this time. But I've heard quite a few editors in the community talk about it and tracking things and maybe tracking. I don't know if they use it for tracking subscriptions too or something, but anyways, you can track, workflows and project management and do a lot. It seems like their AI tool can like build things too. I that's cool, but yeah. So I think that's interesting. A lot more. It reminds me. Listen back to some of the past episodes where I was covering, Dapple, right? A submission management system that has an optional AI assistant. So, some places are implementing AI assistant tools, but, usually most of them have a way you can switch that off. I don't know if this is like required or it's optional, for the Omni here on Airtable. But I know some don't like using AI assistant tools and things like that. I don't, the submission management platform I'm on currently, right? Folio doesn't have anything like that. And I don't think, again, I would ever use that. But for some, they like, building things with AI. It's a personal preference if you like to or not, again, as I mentioned on podcasts. So, yeah. Obviously, I have also, I think, tried briefly Monday.com, and you can see AI is mentioned in here again. A lot of places now are implementing AI, in some way or form. So, what does it say? It says, this is new. I haven't seen this before, a unified AI first product suite. So yeah, Monday.com, is good for, tracking things too. Obviously, I know quite a few use it in organizations and tech companies too. Same with some of the other ones I've mentioned, right? I'm sure Airtable and the other ones. You may have seen, I was on Kintone, page briefly. But yeah, I'm not, I wouldn't say I've used Monday.com a whole bunch, but it is a good tracking, work management software. Free forever up to 2 seats. So you don't get much, just 2 seats, right? And yeah, still the pricing's not too bad, I think, but Free Camp I think still cheaper for task tracking and project management, is what I've seen. And pricing can change, guys, just a heads up, right? As 2025, this is what we're seeing. Yeah, so it looks like their pro plan on Monday.com is $19 a seat a month. And or billed annually, right? It says 190 Yeah. So standard is $12 a seat a month. Basic is $9 a seat a month. So total is $90 a month billed annually. So yeah, you can see, you get up to 3 boards, unlimited docs, 200 plus templates, 8 column types, iOS and Android apps on Monday.com. I think it's nice to have, um, ones that have apps and mobile apps, but they honestly have mixed reviews. A lot of these, management, project management team apps, right? And workflow apps, right? They have mixed reviews I've seen. So really depends, I think it helps when you're on the go to be able to access from your mobile phone. Yeah, so I think that's nice. Same thing. FreeCamp has an app too, and yeah, so I don't know if Airtable has any app functionality like mobile wise, like iOS or anything like that. I don't know, but yeah. Yeah, obviously, some lit magazine journals create spreadsheets and stuff like that with submittable or export things out or task, I think. I'm not sure exactly. Everyone has like a different process for keeping tabs and everything. Everyone has a different combination of software and tools and platforms like these that they use. One combination, I'm familiar in the help desk world that we had, right? We had Atlassian products, right? So the Atlassian suite, right? So Jira and Confluence. Now, Confluence is one I've heard in the community others use. I have experience with Confluence across multiple workplaces myself. And yeah, it's looks like this. So, I predominantly have used it for building out documentation pages, wiki-based articles, and essentially a little bit and how-to steps and process documentation, but it's packed with features. And no doubt, I think Confluence is really nice for documentation and team meeting notes and things like that. I was on teams where they used it nothing but for, documentation again, team notes every time after a Zoom call or, a meeting, right? There would be team notes. Others could refer back to a link to the meeting or recording and things like that. So it's really great for collaboration and project planning and things like that, right? So yeah, I definitely have a lot of experience with Confluence. I would say I'm a fan of Confluence for sure. I don't know. I'm considering, if Team Dippity ever grows or anything like that, or I think it'd be nice, for larger teams, especially to have some sort of comprehensive solution for tracking documentation and everything beyond, let's say OneDrive, Google Drive, or some of the cloud storage systems out there for sharing docs and team markups. But I know quite a few lit magazine journals presses out there use, just the built-in Microsoft Word tracking or track changes that some, documentation building apps have too, or creation apps have, for tracking edits and completion of those. But I think the Confluence is nice for sure. Atlassian, and Atlassian, by the way, also has, this is what HipChat used to look like, so I was familiar with that. This is what essentially like Discord, and it reminds me of Slack. Slack. HipChat is discontinued, right? But I wanted to go to Trello, so yeah, so Trello is also by Atlassian. It's a Kanban board. It's like to dos, and I like this. I've used Trello myself, and yeah, it's really nice. They've changed a lot since I've last used it. I haven't used it in quite some time. I don't know what their pricing looks like today. Let's check it out, guys. So $0, you get, free up to 10 collaborators per workspace. That's not bad. And $5, USD a month, right? It says unlimited boards on that one, a planner, advanced checklist, a collapsible list, unlimited storage. So yeah, they have on their free plan, you even get their iOS and Android mobile apps, 2FA, two-factor authentication, security is important. Unlimited storage, it says 10 megabytes a file, unlimited power-ups per board, inbox, quickly captured dues from email, Slack, and Teams. So I think it's nice if you're using like Slack or, I haven't used Teams a bunch, personally. I don't like Teams. There are, I've never been a huge fan of Microsoft Teams, but there's been places I know that have used a combination of Teams and Slack, or have different teams they work with that use different apps. So I'm not a fan of Teams, and I think I've encountered a lot of con artists using Teams and stuff like that for the job force and trying to job scams and stuff too. So I've always had bad memories of Microsoft Teams and stuff like that. So, but I think Teams is nice nevertheless. Microsoft's sort of chat collaboration app. Some places do use that, but I think I would more so say I'm a fan of Slack and Discord, and Trello is really nice. Checklists and to dos. I really like lists again, so Trello's nice, and the last time I used it, right, they had Kanban boards, and things like that. And I really like it. It's a great, if you're a fan of checklist and to dos, I think it's pretty nice, to plan things out and everything. Yeah. So definitely, I would say I like Trello and Confluence. Atlassian Suite products, I would say I'm definitely a fan. Jira, the ticket management system, that's mostly for customer support and things like that. I think if you're ever like a super large publication house or, press, it's again nice to have a help desk system of some kind, like a ticket management system. Jira obviously, exists, right? And a lot of places use Jira and Confluence, right? Another ticket management system is UTrack, by the way, and this is one I've have experience with. It's they have a great free plan too, so you can have let's check out their free plan. So it's by JetBrains, and you get free 1 to 10 users, and 11 plus users it's 3, and they're changing their pricing on this, so this is going to change probably, right? It says their prices are going to be updated in October, so this might change, but they have a cloud version, like a web version, and yeah. So, yeah, and then you can see monthly billing. Actually, I wasn't toggle on that. That was annual billing, but yeah, it's $4.40 and less per user a month, and you can calculate your price for 11 plus users. But I don't, I think it's great for small teams, and if you have a help desk of some kind, or you want to intake journal submissions, there's a way to configure it, and they have customer support you can still work with. Obviously, it's a bit slower response time if you're on their free plan, right? Because they prioritize the paid plans, right? The help desk. But UTrack is really nice, I think, as well. They have also a feature where you can document things like a wiki base for your team. Obviously, there are limitations with the free plan, but still, nevertheless, a great way. You can easily have like a help desk email and have things forwarded here. They have a mobile app too, so I think UTrack is a nice free solution for small teams. Yeah, it just takes, and it's not too bad. It's fairly inexpensive still. I don't know what the pricing is going to look like October 1st, 2025, but I'm assuming it's still going to be fairly reasonable, hopefully. Yeah, but JetBrains does a lot, and I think I am a fan of them, so I'm still learning more about UTrack myself. And yeah, but yeah, I would say I've, had most experience ticket management system wise, again, with Zendesk and Jira. Zendesk, I think, is a bit easier to grasp for most. Jira took me some time to get the hang of, and maybe that was just because I was used to Zendesk for a couple years. But yeah, UTrack I think is one that I came across within the last 2 years that I would say I'm def a fan of. UTrack. They have a lot to offer. Being they have a free pricing, a free plan, right? And I hope nothing. Excuse me, I may be losing my voice here again, but I hope the pricing doesn't change a whole bunch. Obviously you can go up through the blog and read more. I'll drop links to all the ones I'm talking about in the description again, and I've been going back and updating descriptions. So yeah. Again, this is more so I think it could be geared towards project management. They have Kanban boards too on the back end, and you can assign things. So yeah, it may just be a learning curve for others. It has a lot of other features more so I think for support teams, but it can be applied, to task tracking, I guess, editorial teams too. And yeah. And then, I mentioned spreadsheets and things like that, right? Fill out forms. I shared on the submission management system episode, and I covered, some form builders, right? So it's mostly for intaking forms and stuff. But I think what's really nice about it is that, they have, fill out workflows, and you can see everything almost like a spreadsheet, like intake, But I don't know if they have anything assignment wise or anything like that. I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't really used it a whole bunch. I've, done initial setups with fill out, and I really like it. I think it's nice for intaking things, and it can be applied to intaking submissions, for lit magazine journals, but they have, caps, right? So it says, 1,000 responses a month free. That's pretty nice, considering. So listen back to the custom form builder episode, submission management system one, where I cover some of these collectively. I don't have individual episodes on the fill out form builders, but just one comprehensive episode. I think it was 56, right? A couple episodes back. If I'm wrong on the number, dig through episodes, you'll come across it. But yeah, there are other form builders out there, and I guess some could have like some functionality for tracking things and keeping tabs and stuff too, and assignments. But I think submission management systems have a lot more to offer in terms of that, rounds review and scoring features. So yeah, but nevertheless, fill out I think is pretty cool. And then something I want to mention, lastly, I think if you're a nonprofit, or Dippy Lit Mag at this time is not nonprofit organization or anything like that. But again, things I don't know if things will change with that, or I'm not sure. But anyways, something you have to keep tabs on. If you have a volunteer staff and your nonprofit or your staff in general, right? You want to keep track of others' hours, right, and things like that, right? So yeah, so there are apps out there, and maybe I'll cover towards the end a few. I'm thinking of some out there. I may have them saved here. I'll have to check. But yeah, check out fill out again. And one last one, or two, actually, I just thought of that'll share. I have it, I think, pinned here. There's this new one I came across in my search results or popped up called Homebase. So it says schedule, manage, pay all from one easy app, and it says no credit card required. And you can see they have like a calendar like board here and everything. And it's like everything in one, right? And there's like payroll functionality and stuff they have on some of the plans. But yeah, you can see their basic one, up to 10 employees, up to one location, scheduling, time tracking, team management. They have an essentials, higher plan plus, all in one. So yeah, I think that's not bad for up to 10, employees or staff members. And, I don't know what the whole payroll thing is, but yeah, payroll looks like the plans go way up, right? If you want some of the payment functionality and, payroll and PTO, HR system functionality. So that I think is really for large organizations, but it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever try this out. Some of these that I'm mentioning could be applied again to organizations, companies too, not just lit mags and journals, right? Um, so time tracking, I think is important again for lit mags and journals that are, nonprofit or want to keep track of volunteer hours. Other ones I've seen in search results, I've never used these guys. These are just ones I'm sharing. Additionally, I think my page has been sitting a while, so I may have to refresh it. So track it forward is one I'm not familiar with, but I think it tracks volunteer hours and stuff. I'm not really sure reporting and management logging hours via mobile app. And another one is Time Camp that I've heard about, for tracking hours, attendance, and stuff. So, we have an unpaid volunteer staff and we're not nonprofit. We're not a massive lit mag or journal press or organization at this time. So, I don't think we need anything this extensive. I'm pretty, flexible with my volunteer staff. You help out when you can, and just make sure you do your assignments on time and check in, or give me a heads up if you're going to be away. That's all I ask, in our channels and stuff. I know some places, right, that have paid staff, salaried, right, they're really on top of this. They have like some of these solutions in place, tracking hours, checking in, remote work and stuff like that. So yeah, I think if you're founding editor of a lit mag or journal and you ever get to an extensive size, it's so important to implement workflow management and to be very keep tabs on things. I think with the size that Dippity is with now and some smaller lit mags and journals and presses, we don't need anything super expensive or pricey. We just can use some of the free features and plans out there on some of these systems and platforms and software services, right? So like FreedCamp, I think is really nice. Again, that's one that I would recommend checking out. And yeah, so they have paid plans, and these are it says here, right, again, these features are only available if they're paid plans, but still it's not too bad expense wise, I think, for small teams. So check out FreedCamp again, if you're looking for something project management or keeping tabs of editor tasks or things to do. And one I didn't cover really, I'm not familiar with it. It came up in my search results, is Kintone. So it says they do workflow management stuff, but I think the pricing, I don't know what it really looks like. Let's take a look, guys. So yeah, it's pricey, $24 user per month, minimum 5 users, So yeah, I don't think that's one I'd really use at all. I'd be more geared towards like FreedCamp or, Monday.com or Asana, for things. And I've tried Asana, but I think I prefer FreedCamp over Asana. And yeah, so some lit magazine journals use a combination of one of two of these, for collaboration, chatting, and then task management and project to-do lists, right? Or tracking completion of them, publication wise, and the editorial tasks. So yeah, I think it's so important to be organized, when you're running lit mag or journals. So I'm just sharing, beyond a submission management system, I think sometimes you have to use some of these other tools. And I do hope submission management systems in the future implement some of these features that some of these project and task management apps have. Then lit mag journals and editors won't have to be going outside of the submission management system as much, right? Because I think it still happens, right? There's not a comprehensive solution. We don't have in a lot of submission management systems to date, calendars, workflow. There's workflow creation, but there's not anything where we have, again, some of these features on paid plans, right? Task lists, chart changing, Kanban boards and things like that. And yeah, some project management focused tools. I think submission management systems more need to perhaps incorporate that or implement that. That would really help, in terms of the editorial process and things like that, and due dates and project tracking and completion tracking on our side, right? I think that'd be really beneficial. And having maybe a section for wiki articles and stuff. Obviously, that's to do that, right? These submission management systems, right? They have cost associated with storage and file retention and things like that, right? And data retention. So it can be expensive for them to facilitate something like that. So yeah, anyways, I do hope submission management systems maybe do that, or one submission management system out there. I think that'd be really a differentiation from others out there. So I really like Subfolio, though. I'd say thus far we've been on it for 2 months, and I know some just use nothing but Submittable, and then maybe occasionally chat through maybe Discord or Slack, outside a backup messaging system, to keep tabs and everything. But yeah, nevertheless, I think when you get to several thousand submissions or several hundred, it and even just not even close to that, it helps to have a submission management system that you're using, to keep tabs on everything, labeling, tracking the statuses of. It can be really hard just to do that via email alone. So, yeah, that's all I really wanted to cover, some additional tools for founding editors of lit magazine journals to implement perhaps with their team alongside of their submission management system. I think a lot of us, as editors or teams, managing teams, we're still using other tools and project management tracking apps, and a lot of organizations, out there, companies, perhaps, in your 9 to 5 job or things like that, you may run into some of these, right? Slack is common, right? And some of the other ones I mentioned, maybe perhaps, right? Even Google Workspace, right? That's a common one, and some lit magazine journals just use Google Workspace too. There are a lot of features that Google Workspace has as well. With email, chatting and video meetings and all of that, right? It is something others use. It's $7 a user per month, so it's not like I think the cheapest one out there. But yeah, Google Workspace is still a great option. I think it works well if a lot of your team members, right, are perhaps using already, Google products, the G Suite, or already. Yeah. So yeah, it really depends. Again, what your preference is. Do you like to do list, checklist? Do you like something that has a little bit of everything? You have to do trials of these again and see what you like. Freed Camp was one that I felt was pretty good, for what they offered on their free plan. And then it's not too bad, it looks like, for their paid plans. Again, pricing can change, but yeah, I just wanted to share these. There are several others out there, this by no means covers all the ones out there. So I just wanted to do an overview of some of the ones I was aware of, some I have experience with, and some I don't. I do go back and update some of the lists and descriptions with other ones I come across or recommendations. So just take a look at the descriptions very closely, and I tried my best to hyperlink everything down there, and yeah, as resources and directions. But yeah, so I think, again, I would really like to see more submission man systems implement some of these features that, project management tools have, like Monday.com, Asana, FreeCamp, Trello even, and some totally do. Dapple has that drag and drop functionality, and some other workflow features, and so does Subfolio, right? Workflow creation, submittable, as I said. But there are some features I think still missing for submission management systems to be able to be comprehensive in terms of helping track all of the tasks that editorial teams do, publication task wise, and when it comes to maybe chapbook publication or online publication or proofreading task, and team events. I think there's not one comprehensive solution fully, there's still some features that we really wish we could have in submission management systems as of 2025. Yeah, so I think, for others, it's not really, you know, it's not that great to create additional workflows on top of the workflows for reviewing assignments and to the reading team. I think it's good to have those separated. But I think I would love, again, to see a submission management system have like a wiki section, a calendar, to-do list tracking, a Kanban board or something, additional there that others could really use for keeping tabs on, where a publication is, the status is on the back end, versus just what the statuses submitters see, right? Something more comprehensive. So yeah, these are some things I'm aware of some of the community use. These are also some I've tried, as I mentioned, right? Freedcamp, Asana, I've tried Monday.com a little bit and a few others that I haven't mentioned, right? I've heard about some other ones like Motion or something, and some that integrate where there's a feature to have a contract signed and then it kicks off tasks, right, for the someone to review, right? It could be the submitter or someone, agreeing to a publication agreement or something. Motion.io. I don't know. There's tons out there. If you do alternatives to Asana, alternatives to Airtable, alternatives to Monday.com, alternatives to Discord, alternatives to Slack, right? You'll come up with a bunch, right? Yeah, so these are just some apps and tools maybe that could help with organizing things on your team, alongside your submission management system. So just keep that in mind. I think it's too hard to try and organize everything via email, especially if you have a large team, if you're doing meetings and you have different roles and tasks and a lot of deadlines you're juggling. I think it's so important to have something in place to or system, to keep tabs on everything. So yeah, again, be sure to listen back to the episode where I, give additional advice for future founding editors of Lit Magazine Journals, my experience running Deputy Lit Mag and Press. Yeah, so that was, I think, episode 57, right? Or it was an episode or two back too. And listen to also the earlier audio episodes at the start of the series. I cover things both for submitters and founding editors a little bit in each episode, and sometimes I don't. So sometimes I do video shares like this and collective just thoughts on different platforms and services. So a mixture. So yeah, I hope this helped. You may have even, come across this and may not be, a founder of a lit mag or journal or editor, but maybe you're looking for a project management solution or something for your team. And I hope you came across one that's like, oh, that looks cool. I'm going to check that out. So if you did, totally drop a comment, let me know. Totally if you come across this episode and it helped you. So yeah, tons of solutions out there for project management. Every year more project management apps come out. There's always another tool, another software service, so I think it's nice to just situate on one, but there's always one coming out year after year, right? I think it's not really good to move teams from a system every year and year. You want to really be situated on one long term, as long as possible, that you really like, obviously. So, Atlassian's been around for quite some time. Their suite and project management, I don't think they're really going. I don't think they're not going to be discontinued anytime soon. I don't think so. A lot of companies use Jira, Confluence, Trello, their whole suite and product suite, right? And same thing with Google Workspace, right? Some of the other ones, I'm not sure when exactly they were founded or created, like Freedcamp. I'm not sure how long Freedcamp's been around, but I definitely say I like Freedcamp that it has, free in the name, right? It has some quite a lot of free features in there that are pretty good, I'd say. If you're looking for something basic to keep tabs, a calendar or task tracking and, discussion, and they have fairly inexpensive plans as of 2025, it looks like. I don't know if this is going to change. Some of the other ones I mentioned, right? UTrack has project management features on their free plan. The pricing looks like it's going to change in 2025 of October. I don't know what that's going to look like, but yeah, nevertheless, check out some of these tools. It may help you, keep things a bit more organized outside your submission management system. I think it's always good to have, have a place where team members can check the statuses of things if they're working on multiple things, assignments, and you have a very large team. Even if you have a small team, it's a good idea to have some sort of, again, system in place for project management, task tracking, and especially if you're an editor of Lit Mag or Journal, it could be a managing editor, a founding editor, an editorial assistant. I think it's nice to use something, and to see the due dates, deadlines, or what's in mind. Even, Slack and Discord are beneficial. Again, I know some in the Lit Mag and Journal community use a combination of, Slack and Confluence or Monday.com or mixture. I don't like using like 5, 6, 7 different apps, right? I think it's nice just to, it would be nice if we could just use our submission management system and then maybe a backup channel, maybe Discord or Slack, right? And that's what we basically do today, right? At Dippy Lit Mag, right? We don't have a bunch of different apps we're using for tracking everything. We're not that size or scale. But I think if it ever gets to that point, growing a larger team, I totally would implement one of these requirement, for others to check their tasks, their due dates, and deadlines a little bit further. Yeah, because it's hard to keep tabs on just like through chat or via email, right? And it's just you'll forget things. It's good to have reminders, alerts, or a place you can check statuses, due dates, what's everyone working on, to see assignments and stuff like that. So yeah, submission management systems again. I really like Subfolio because you can again really drill down into permissions and others access and stuff like that. I feel like Submittable as of 2025 isn't quite there permission wise set up. So I prefer Subfolio over Submittable. And again, that's why we left. Partly why we left. I feel like we have less restrictions with Subfolio. Unlimited projects and things like that on our plan. Our bill didn't go up at all. But still, I feel like, again, some submission management systems are still lacking some of these project management functionalities and features. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on this because it comes up quite a bit. It came up recently again. So I'm just like, yeah, this is a good topic to cover. I have some recommendations myself, right? Freedcamp and, some of the other ones I mentioned you could check out too. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. So I hope this helped you again. And I'm going to sign off now, guys. Be sure to listen back to some of the episodes where I cover again submission management systems, some of them individually, their features and plans. Yeah, again, I did that, I think, in episode 56. And then individual episodes, I mentioned them in that episode a little bit. And some of the earlier episodes, I share a little bit what it's like, on a volunteer staff or volunteer readers and what our setup was like a little bit. And, other things to take consideration. Again, for running Lit Manga Journal, in episode, I think it was 57, right? Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope this helped you and you maybe can check out some of these, what's really going to work for you. Again, you have to do trials, see what your budget is capable of, all of that same things I've said before. PS, guys, so you may have heard me say Motion, right? Motion.io. That is also another onboarding sort of project management workflow app I've heard of recently. I'm not familiar with that at all, but I am familiar with Notion, Notion, right? Don't confuse the two, because yeah, I forgot. I want to share this one too, one last one. So Notion, I think, is really good for team tracking, stuff like that. I've actually, used Notion. I think they also have a way you can intake things too, or something. I'm not sure. But they have calendar, wikis, docs, forms. You can do responses and requests too. I don't know what all of that entails, but you can create, forms. It looks like task forms and stuff, or unlimited forms for free. So this and workflows, things like that. I think it's pretty neat for like organizing things too. So another option you could maybe add to your list of, workflow tracking and task management for your team. I haven't used it extensively, but I've dabbled a little bit in their form creation and features. I did do a trial of it a little bit. So, free for individual usage. It says here basic forms, basic sites, a Notion calendar, syncs with Gmail, databases, including subtasks, dependencies, custom properties. Yeah. And then it's $10 per member a month, and then 20 on their business plan, right? $10 on their plus plan. And, you get unlimited file uploads, unlimited cloud blocks, custom sites. And yeah, so I think the thing about paid plans, once you stop paying for the plans, right? I think, right, obviously they cut off your features and your access to stuff, right? So that's the thing about the ones that have paid plans, right? And don't, if you're not on their free plan, I like sticking to the ones that have free plans, obviously, and, comprehensive, where you don't have to worry about, paying for your storage and the integrations and losing access to stuff. That's just the thing, So yeah, I'm not sure about it. It says, on $20 a month you get private team spaces and, domain verification, single sign-on. So yeah, it looks like for privatization you really need, business plan with them. And that was the monthly is on the plus. Sorry, I had it. The toggle always I forget, right? So $12 per month, right? A month, and then business is $24 per month. So Plus is $12 per team member a month. Business is $24 per member a month. And Enterprise, they have custom pricing. But yeah, I know quite a few places use Notion, and it's been around for quite some time, I think, for sure. Um, yeah, so a lot of companies do use Notion. It may work for you, for collaboration and with your team. So you just have to do trials of these again. So I'll add this one to the description. You can check out Notion, .com. Again, there's like motion.io. I'm not familiar with that, but that popped up somewhere, when I was looking. I don't know anyone really using that, but it could be something you want to look at. I think they had something neat where others could, it could track like a contract signed and different functionalities and stuff like that. And yeah, obviously I've seen some places use DocuSign and stuff, but some submission man systems have it where you can have a file, uploaded, right? And then others just sign that back to you, or attach it as a scan of it, or, a photograph, right? Or of the file signed, for the contract and publication agreements. But yeah, yeah, so you might want to check that. I'll put lists links to all the ones I mentioned. Obviously, they have a lot of features I haven't covered, in each one, so you really have to dig in to do trials accounts with these. So yeah, I just wanted to mention Notion because I think I am a fan of Notion. What they have to offer. It's just I don't like paying paid plans a bunch. I try to avoid that because of the budget I have to work with, and I'm sure others too. But yeah, I've seen several in the community use Notion too. I would say quite a few that I'm aware of. So it's not something you should rule out. And one more, guys, just one more I want to share here that I came across, aside from Notion, that which I have some experience with. And again, I think Notion's really great, just mentioning for note taking, team, collaboration, and documentation, I guess you could say too. But again, for really like, I think, privatization, it looks like you have to be on, one of their paid plans. But anyways, one more that I'm tacking on all the way at the end here, that just I came across again. So it's Team Hub. Now it looks like about $99 a month for unlimited users. I think this is a special pricing offer they have right now. And yeah, I have again no familiarity with it, but essentially what they're saying, it's a replacement for Asana, Slack. Look at that. So, and Notion and Monday.com and Teams and Atlassian, right? And it says, limited to the first 99 companies only. So I'm not sure when Team Hub started. But yeah, it looks pretty cool, for project management. I think that's drag and drop that we're seeing there. It says it replaces Asana, Trello, Smartsheet. It has, built-in team chat. It has, docs and knowledge base capabilities, like, Confluence, and, it looks like calendar systems here. You got a board view, a Kanban view, table view, and you can see assigning names. There's a list view, a people view, even, and again, the calendar view. So a lot of, all the capabilities all tied together into one platform. I think it's nice. Yeah, of some of the project management tools I showed you. So that's really great. Again, I personally have tried Freed Camp. It's been a while again because, when I had volunteers drop off, we didn't really get a chance to really leverage it at the time. And with the amount of volunteers we have currently in our structure, right, others just pitch in when they can. Mostly I am, keeping tabs on due dates, deadlines, and tasks. And, others just help out when they can. I give a deadline and say, hey guys, we have this deadline, in our channel, and that's pretty much it. And sometimes we extend them as needed based on schedule changes. But I think when you have a rather large team and you want to keep track and a lot of publications going on, for the year, you really want to keep track of everything, and it's beneficial, right, as an editor to, you know, have calendar dates for like nomination events, for various table events and things like that too that you're partaking in. And yeah, and to have a timetable for publications. Yeah, so you want to be organized, absolutely. I think Team Hub is really unique in that sense. I think I see, it shows a Google Meet here, one-to-one examples. You can do book one-on-one walkthroughs, team meetings, it looks like, and track those. So yeah, it may be a good comprehensive solution for you. Aside from the submission management system, obviously, it says you can also create forms for data capture. I'm not, sure what all of that entails, but dig into it again. Just another one I'm sharing its existence because it looks pretty cool. Like one of those that may be a perhaps all-in-one solution. So you're not juggling multiple apps, right? Maybe just your submission management system and maybe Team Hub, right? Or one of the other ones I mentioned could work for you too, or a combination. $99 a month, I feel like that may be out of some, uh, ballparks. For me, I don't necessarily think I have the budget myself to really do a business plan or 99 bucks per month. But I think with what you're getting, it may be great for, a medium to large size team for sure. They have again a free plan, for two users too. So it's not like they don't have a free plan at all. So yeah, you get two users, unlimited products, unlimited tasks, 90 days of chat history, three forms, 100 megabyte of storage, templates, and standard support. If you go to their, Teams plan, right, it's $10 per user per month. It looks like, and yeah, and then businesses again, they have a special offer plan right now, and that's probably going to change. But it looks like for right now, it's showing 99, per month, unlimited users for a growing team, and yeah, and it crossed off here $15 per user a month. So yeah, um, sometimes some of these platforms I showed you, or you know uh, team project management and task tracking apps, they have special offers. Pricing can change, as I showed you on UTrack, for instance, and things like that. So just keep that in mind. UIs can change, plant pricing plans can change. What I say as of 2025, 2025 now, wow, I was tongue tied, guys, is not necessarily what may exist, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And again, I'm sure more projects and task management apps will come out, and there are tons of alternatives out there, right? These aren't the only ones I'm sharing, but these are ones that caught my eye, or too. So yeah, so totally, check these out. I'll put a list again in the description and links to all of these. So yeah, so now take care, guys. Bye. That's all I wanted to share here. Some options for you for staying on top of task organizing and everything. Again, I'm more of a list person. I love to do list, and I think drag and drop's really easy to use. Places that have that functionality, but yeah, ease of use is so important. So yeah, you can do trials of these if you like, demos, right? Obviously, you could reach out to some of these places and learn more about them if you need further support or help, obviously. So yeah, that's Team Hub, another one stumbled across just recently. So I wanted to just share that too. So bye guys. Yeah, take care. Yeah.